Hello, everybody. And as you can see, Wajid is joining us for the Talk podcast once again. Paul does apologise for his missing it, but he's still crying that he's actually on naught on predictions. That's what it is. Don't worry, as you'll find out soon, we didn't do much better. Yeah, the Japanese Grand Prix, I think we've all just about woke up from it. I know what you're all going to say about Japan. Even though I try and find the most exciting things about Grand Prix, if it's something about a battle somewhere, if it's something about a pit strategy or just a moment of greatness or something, but I think it's pretty much zoomed up, seen from the highlights reel being about 8 seconds long and summed up perfectly by Oscar Piastri. Is that all that happened? Wajid, the Grand Prix, yeah, it wasn't a sparkler, was it?
I mean, you're very, very polite about it. It was totally shit.
Yeah.
The only overtake we had in the top 7 was Hamilton and Hadjar, and that's because the Ferrari is about 95 seconds quicker than the Red Bull Visa Cash App American Express payment PayPal service car.
Yeah.
I think it's the third time in history that the top 6 is either
top
third or
4.
fourth?
It was the fourth time, yeah.
Yeah, it's the fourth time in history that the top 6 remained the top 6 from qualifying to the.
Which I can also add. The last one was Monaco 2024.
Yeah, I think two of them. I think 2 of the races were Monaco.
Yeah.
So even in Monaco, it's very totally horseshit. Thanks, Ross Brawn, for your contribution to these cars. This is all your fault, you elite waste man.
I'm not 100% sure it's on the cars, and I know what you're going to say about it, but it's just a strange thing that in 2024 and 2023 and 2022, yes, we've had a dominant car, but it's a leader. We're kind of, the leader disappears, and then we get good fights behind. You look back to 2011 and 2013 when Vettel dominated. People go, "Oh, the Indian track was so terrible because Vettel won at all of them." Yeah, but if you look behind, the battles were brilliant. So, for me, it's a strange one. I've just realised my camera's backwards, but anyway.
But the battles were even brilliant behind this race.
There we go. That's better. Monaco actually says Monaco now. This was possibly. And I've watched some dull ones. You can think of the first race back at Paul Ricard, I think, was pretty dull.
All the races minus the 2021 one, I want to say, but pretty dull.
Yeah, but you had DRS that could do things. In Suzuka, isn't the only straight long enough to make DRS usable is actually, now the cars are so close, is actually the one to 130R. And the last thing we want, hey Jack Doohan, is somebody going through a corner without DRS wide open, especially at 130R, because you end up in the S's.
If they're gonna have DRS on the pit straight, the activation zone literally has to be before the start finish line. It's too far down at Suzuka. For these cars, for given the amount of dirty air they give and stuff like that, the DRS activation point is too far down the straight for it to do anything. I think the analysts worked out that on average a car had to be 5.5 to 6 seconds quicker to overtake. That is pathetic.
Well, that 5.5 to 6 seconds quicker is pretty much. Minardi weren't that far behind.
You're talking on the odd occasion when the 107% rule had to be
Yeah, yeah,
had to be enforced during qualifying. Like that's the level of difference we're talking.
yeah,
It is pathetic that in 2024 we are still here talking about overtaking problems with these cars.
yeah. No, the thing is, I don't think it's. Sorry, I think
That's
phone
okay.
going off somewhere. I just had feedback in my ear. Um, no, it's one of them things where I still don't think it's the cars. I think it is right that they do follow better. You know, I know we've got this 2 second gap that Lando likes to sit behind somebody to keep his tyres in check, and then Piastri doesn't do that and doesn't leave his tyres in check. But yeah, okay, you can run 2 seconds back and protect the tyres, but you also can run half a second back and be okay.
Sorry,
Go on.
I want to count. The whole point we moved from the 2021 cars
Yeah.
was to alleviate the problem we are facing right now in I said
Yes.
2025, in 2025, which is the cars. There was too many aerodynamic bits. The cars could not run behind at 1 second, and there wasn't enough overtaking. The cars are now, I believe, are now bigger than those cars,
Yeah, yeah.
and they still can't run behind the cars.
Yeah, I think the bigger thing is it's the main issue because you're then creating, well, you're creating a bigger hole, but you've got a heavier car to get through that hole. And that's why I think, honestly, like, if you go back, say you went to Magny Cores now, I think the circuit would just be too narrow.
I don't think they can race at Monaco.
Yeah,
It's too small.
and that's what I mean. You look at Zandvoort, really, if you had fast, nimble cars of the past, probably create a few more chances to overtake, to be fair. But it's one of these. Somebody said to me, "Oh, they're meant to be 2 or 3 seconds a lap quicker next season with the active aero," and I'm going, "No, we don't want that because if you made the cars quicker, the braking areas are shorter and overtakes are less."
And but going back to the cars being too big for the track, this is why people have such a massive issue with Monaco in the current format. You know,
Yeah,
because after there is no point. There's okay, no point is strong. There's hardly any point watching a Sunday at Monaco because because unless it's a catastrophic accident or a total screw up in the pits or there's like multiple safety cars or the weather, qualifying dictated the result.
well, the thing
And
is, in general, you know, we keep mentioning Monaco, but this was Suzuka, which have brought up classic races. You know, it's
they
not a
have
circuit you can't overtake on. But we never saw any of the like Kobayashi type moves into the hairpin. Spoon entry is too quick now. And going through the S bends, you obviously can't do a huge amount because they're carrying so much speed. You can't get that extra speed around the outside.
you can't even go around 130 R anymore.
Yeah. Well, a 130 R is nothing now, which
And
it shouldn't be.
but that's the problem. That's the problem I have. But you know, I I mean, let's get into the risk because it does. I don't want to take away from a Max Verstappen masterclass. To be perfectly honest.
Well, we will get into that in a second. The first thing I wanted to talk about, because we have already mentioned it, the active aero for 2026.
Sorry, yeah.
More likeliness that something can happen. Jack Doohan, whether he didn't turn the DRS off or not, these cars next season could have an issue electrical wise. That means that the DRS doesn't shut, the aero doesn't shut off, and it doesn't go back to where it should do. And we're going to have a huge accident with many cars.
All the team signed off on it and said it's a great idea. So obviously they must have thought of all this safety precautions in place. Clearly, there's never been an electrical issue in Formula One, and you know why would you be worried about probably the most important dynamic in F1, which is the aerodynamics of a car, and making it more complex and having it malfunction? Who needs to worry? Who needs to worry about something like that? Um, in regards to the Jack Dune thing, I think he's left his DRS open.
Yeah.
You can see all them green lights nice and open, and he must have thought he was in the F1 sim or something and thought he'd give it a go. Um, Fair play, Jack. uh, I mean, and also in regards to the regulations, I mean, let's get into the thing that you and I have spoken about consistently. I mean, since we started this podcast, the V10s.
Yeah, I mean, the V10s obviously have been over Grand Prix weekend suggested as the place which we're kind of heading. Not surprisingly, it now gives Audi the get out clause they've been waiting for because they're not too happy about going away from these hybrid kind of engines. I think we've both touched on it before. We'd like V10s, we like the idea of the renewable fuels and things like that, which just make it all a bit more green friendly. I hope they go that way, but if it means that Audi disappear, does it mean Cadillac might disappear? And we're back to the 10 team, well, possibly 10 teams, depending on how Sauber get on. And Sauber looking for a buyer.
I don't think is. I think Formula One have pandered too much to Audi in the first place. The whole reason half of these sort of regulations have come about is because it's like Audi kept on saying no. Audi kept on saying no. Oh, we need Audi. We need Audi. We need, Porsche. Like they tried to pander to Porsche with the engine train. Porsche told them to do one. So who gives a shit if Audi? Who gives a shit if Audi leaves? I mean, the Audi project, as you said, the Audi project is seems to be dying before it gets started in the first place, given that they've gone from 100% ownership to, I think now there's a Qatari investment group now have a percentage portion of the F1 stake. So that I don't give a shit if, to be honest, I don't really give a shit if Audi cry. And Honda were all intents and purposes leaving at the end of 2021, and then all of a sudden made a drastic U-turn. So I don't really give a shit if Honda leave. To be perfectly honest, because this turbo hybrid stuff, it's not. In my opinion, it's not the future of cars and road development and stuff, because like car manufacturers are already looking away from the EV electrical car thing because it's not sustainable enough, because the only people that seem to be on top of the sort of technology is Tesla. Every other car manufacturer doesn't have the same infrastructure, and they're already started working on hydrogen fuel cells. So no one gives a shit about the electrical portion of a turbo hybrid engine in the first place. Bring back the V10s. At least let's have some screaming cars down the track. Like at least make it slightly interesting. And given that you can essentially remove the electrical portion of the hybrid engine, ironically, the engine becomes smaller, which means you can pack the engine in closer, which means you can make the car smaller, even if it's not for 2028, 2030, 2031. Just bring them back. I do not care. No F1 fan cares about electric hybrid stuff. It is shit.
Yeah, and the thing is, I mean, yes, I mean, a lot of people will say to us, like, oh, we've been lucky with the Grand Prix. Yeah, K1's right. The cars just need to be smaller, and it is something that obviously they're trying to head towards next season, which will be a godsend. But I think we have been lucky with the first three Grand Prix. It rained in Australia, made it a half decent race. China wasn't a classic, but it was a half decent race. It wasn't boring. I try my best not to call Grand Prix boring, but Japan was just dull. There wasn't anything happening. It didn't look like anything was going to happen. The McLarens were never going to swap. Nobody was going to catch the McLarens. Nobody was going to catch Max. And having the only excitement as a pit lane exit is wrong within its wildest dreams anyway. But I kind of think of it in this kind of way that Formula One, is so close now, which is what everybody's been asking for, that the cars are so close together that the speed differential isn't there for overtake sometimes. And then we get a race like Japan where it's just, I mean, I didn't feel a lack of sleep on Sunday because I had a nice little doze during the Grand Prix, probably. I can't remember. So it's that unmemorable. And I don't like calling Grand Prix that. I love things happening in every Grand Prix. But, man, I don't expect it from Suzuka either, do you?
No, you don't. Especially because you commented on the F1 released the last 15 laps of the 2005 Grand Prix, arguably Kimi Raikkonen's greatest race as an F1 driver, and the speed and the cars, the overtaking, that race had everything. And yes, there is a bit of nostalgia given it's a race that people constantly go to, but there has been some classic races. There's been classic races at Suzuka, and for it to, and given the hype there was around, this week with the Red Bull, with Sonoda, with everything, just to sort of it to peter out to what it played to. Like I was annoyed. I was annoyed. I woke up to watch the race, to be perfectly honest. And spoiler alert: given Bahrain is a test ground, I don't see Bahrain being that much entertaining next week either.
I think Bahrain won't be too bad. I mean, you think back to other races we've had some really good ones at Bahrain, so I think it will be different when we get to Bahrain this weekend. But coming back to Japan, obviously we had the calls that McLaren were going to be the quickest car and stuff like that. But Max Verstappen comes out on top with a great drive. Don't get me wrong, but I want to ask, was it Max or was it the car and just the drivers like Yuki, Lawson, Perez, everybody who hasn't got the most out of its car? Maybe they're just that midfield kind of driver, and Yuki did all right in practice and just went for a wrong setup. So I expect he'll be pretty close to Max in Bahrain.
Well, in practice, he was only a 10th. I think he's only a 10th and a half to 2/10 off Max.
Yeah.
He's the closest a teammate has been to Max since, I think, Danny Rick or the early Perez stages.
Perez.
Yeah. So, he was there. Yuki was there or thereabouts. He just went the wrong way with the setup and he couldn't move more forward. But I think, in a stupid way, I think it's good for Yuki because it almost works as a glorified test run at Suzuka. He knows the track. He could have he could experiment with different setups with the cars and stuff like that and see how it goes. In terms of Max Verstappen showed why, at this moment in time, he's the best driver in the world. In my opinion.
he did drive, and don't get me wrong. If we were rating, Max would get 10 out of 10 for me this weekend.
Yeah, I know.
He did drag the car ahead of other drivers that he shouldn't have been ahead. I think McLaren would have run off with 1-2 if they could have done. But it was won in qualifying with a very, very good lap by him. Was it lap from the gods? Maybe not, but it was very, very good.
I don't think it's as good as, in my opinion, from my history, I don't think it's as good as Lewis's Singapore lap, which
But was it as good as Max's Saudi lap that never finished? Because you've got to remember that's the greatest qualifying lap. No, sorry, don't start that, Dave.
Don't say that. No, it was phenomenal. And if I was McLaren, given the changes that are coming, I believe in June, to the flexible wings and stuff like that, I would be very, very scared that Lando Norris is only 1 point ahead of, as someone opens a Pepsi.
Yeah.
I would be very, if I'm Lando Norris and McLaren, I would be very scared. I am only 1 point ahead of Max Verstappen going into those changes, given universally the McLaren is considered the quickest car this year. And Max is doing to an inferior car what you expected Lando to do in a superior car last year, which is he's maximizing his results. He's staying as close as possible, and he has dragged a car and got a win from a car, which, let's be perfectly honest, should not have won any. Should not be close to a race win in the opening 3 races.
No, I mean we did see, as we said before, from practice where Sonoda was a lot closer to Max and Liam Lawson was. Perez has been, the fact of the matter is that actually since Brazil 2024, yes, I know it was late on in the season, but since Brazil 2024 till now, Max actually has more wins than his teammates have got points. That shows you the hole that Red Bull are in with the second driver situation. But I do think Yuki did really well this weekend. Go to Bahrain, a track he knows well. Let's see what he can do there. I mean, I'm not judging him on this weekend because he had that major setup change. I'm not sure why he went for that, because obviously you were always going to lose out. But, I thought Tsunoda had a decent first, after jumping in the car just randomly, and obviously it's very different to the RB. I think he had a decent outing. Not driver of the day worthy, though.
No, it wasn't driver of the day. With it, this driver of the day thing's got to stop giving.
It's getting silly now, isn't it?
It's getting stupid.
I mean, do we need to go to something where people aren't voting for it, but they say, right, Martin Brundle, your commentator, like they do with football, Gary Neville will call out who's man of the match.
I think that's what it's got to go to. It's just got stupid at this point.
Yeah, it's
because stupid. It's still stupid. The driver of the day, Antonelli, won that he doesn't deserve to win.
Yeah.
Stupidly enough, you could have given it to him on Sunday in Suzuka because of how phenomenal he was. And for me, that's the first time Antonelli stepped up. We'll get to that, obviously, but
yeah.
In terms of McLaren, in terms of Red Bull, in terms of Max, Max should not be this close to Lando. Max drove phenomenally, and if I was Lando Norris, if I was Zach Brown, Andreas Seidel, the McLaren team, I would be very, very worried that they are not maximizing their results. They are lucky they have the quickest car, because if they were doing the same things now, and if they had the speed of the Ferrari, they wouldn't have won a race this season.
Yeah, I've got to say, I mean, McLaren, did they not maximize this weekend? No, they didn't. Did they drop the ball with a pit stop? Because, I mean, whether the mediums are running out or not, it is believed that the McLaren has 2 to 3 tenths of pace in a race setup compared to everybody else. That's what's believed in the paddock. I haven't seen that yet, apart from maybe the start of Australia, but it's what seems to be going around, and I think it's something McLaren obviously need to get a grips of, need to qualify better. We go to Bahrain next, which McLaren I don't think have been very good at.
Historically, I can't remember McLaren ever being.
I can remember De La Rosa getting fastest lap of the year that he replaced Montoya for one race, 2005, if I want to say. And Montoya had his tennis ball accident, even though he didn't fall on a tennis ball. And I think that was the outright record for a long, long time. But I can't think of them actually winning in Bahrain at all. So they'll be looking to put that right. They were quick in testing, so we know that. But so were Ferrari. So are Ferrari going to suddenly pop up this weekend? They're always fundamentally very good at Bahrain. They won the first Grand Prix with Alonso back in 2010 or whatever. Yeah, 2010. So these are things that I kind of hope we'll see, and we're not going to see the McLaren scamper away. Mercedes are the ones I think at the moment who are getting the maximum out of their car. I don't think that Mercedes is as close as it kind of looks. I think they're just maximizing what they can get, whereas Red Bull obviously need to get the second driver up there. McLaren, we know, have the quickest car, and they're not winning every race. And Ferrari, we know, just is I think Ferrari is a safe car at the moment. I don't think they've pushed it to the edge, and they're still getting okay results. So, not what they want, of course.
Do you believe that okay results from the Ferrari? I think they've been quite disappointing. Given the driver lineup they have, given the hype they came in, given the way testing went, and it's like an open secret that they're not looking at 2026. They're not looking at the engine development. They're not looking at the car development. They've thrown everything into 2025. And the fact that, one, the car's on a knife edge, two, apparently they're bringing in a brand new upgrade to the floor to Bahrain. So we'll see how that goes. They both got disqualified in China. Leclerc was nowhere compared to the front three. Hamilton was nowhere compared to the front six.
Yeah.
And you and I had Ferrari winning the constructors and a Ferrari driver winning the world title. I think it's been a horrendous start. Granted, they are lucky there's, I think, 24, 25, however bloody many races, so there's enough time to catch up. But I think it's been a horrific start for Ferrari.
I don't think, if I went for testing, yes, it's horrific. If I went, Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc, yes, I'd say, terrible. But what we got to look at is the package as a whole. Fred Vasseur is still building this team. He's still getting the guys in to make, there'll be people who he signed a couple of years ago who will make no difference to the team until this season, going into next or whatever. Yes, 10th in Australia, 8th in Australia for Leclerc, completely, they got caught out, but they didn't get caught out by rain. They risked something and it didn't work. Or they would have been a bit higher, maybe 5th and 6th or something like that. They obviously lost out because, Albon finished 5th, Kimi Antonelli finished 4th. They would have been around them two drivers if they'd pitted with everybody else. China, the disqualifications, they happen. They're not the right things. Lewis said something along the lines of, because the rumor is that Lewis asked for the car to be lower in China. So if they pushed the envelope to see if they could do it, and obviously it didn't work. The Charles Leclerc side of that, well, you were underweight, tough luck. And did you see how they drove on the in-lap at Japan? They're driving off pretty much like a rally car.
Yeah, they're trying to get as much debris as possible.
But they managed to get the win in the sprint race at China. And then in Japan, considering how the race went, 4th and 7th is probably the maximum they're going to get, because Charles was nowhere near the top 3, so he was best of the rest. He was Formula 1.25. And Lewis got past Hadjar, which was his main concern, and then next up would have been Antonelli, but just didn't seem to have the pace overall. But he is stating that there's something that they found on the car which they believe was an issue to him. So let's see if that gets fixed for Bahrain. I'm not saying it will, but I think you'll see Ferraris do a little bit better in Bahrain. Moving on to Japan, back to Japan though, Mercedes are 5th and 6th, First time we've seen Kimi Antonelli looking like a consistent driver. Did very well with the tyres. I know there's a lot of praise about that. But I think it was a Grand Prix that nobody expected the tyres to go as well as they did. And it was a bit of a punt in the dark by Mercedes to go, just keep going until they run out. Because one, they took 2 records off Max Verstappen this weekend. And it was the last race they could do it. So am I being cynical in thinking this is Toto Wolff trying to get 2 records under Kimi Antonelli's name because he's not going to be the youngest driver to win a race. He's not going to be the youngest pole position holder. He's not going to be the youngest world champion at the moment.
But he is on track to beat Lewis Hamilton's rookie record of points.
Don't start that. There's only 10 for a win those days.
Yes, I know, but he's still gonna beat. But he's still gonna beat the record.
Right. On this, I know you're just winding me up, but technically, Lando Norris has actually who we got. Who probably, Norris and Verstappen's score put together would be the same as Lewis, around the same as Lewis's at the end of that season. I think he got 105, 104,
109. Because
109. Sorry, 110 for
Kimi got 110.
Yeah, so if you put together Verstappen and Piastri's score, they become world champion over Lewis Hamilton that year. But we've got still another 20 billion races this year. So, all right, not 20 billion, 19 billion. So it's always going to be bigger and better scores. I always think with that one, they should rearrange it into a point scoring system of choice that everybody everybody is scored by. So if you're comparing it to Lewis, how much would Lewis have got that season if he'd been 25 for a win going down to 10th place?
265.
Well, he probably would have got more.
No, it's Planet F1 have already done that. It's 265 because they took out Lewis's They did it off the basis of something about Lewis's Nürburgring 9th place finish. I think they gave him the 2 points. So Lewis actually, I think it's 265. Lewis ends up in for the season, and that was a 17 race season.
Yeah,
not a 27.
Yeah, we'll have to really have a look into that. And you say Planet F1, we'll have to have a look at that at some point and see whether we can see the data behind it. But yeah, it's one that you knew it was going to wind me up, so that's why you said it.
Yeah, that's why I said it.
Because go on.
Because the more races, the entire point scoring system was totally different. I still don't know why we moved to 25, but whatever, that's just me. But it's going to get brought up. It is going to get brought up. Excuse me. In terms of Antonelli, sorry, go on. No, I was going to say in terms of Antonelli, this is the first race where I've genuinely gone, yeah, do you know what? Fair play. I can see why there was so much hype and so much talk about you, because even when he went onto the hards for that second stint, I think he finished within a second of George Russell. Like, he was the quickest car on the track by a long way, and he got the fastest lap. He was hunting George, and it's fair play. And in terms of George Russell, I believe he's still third in the world championship. Like, and he's got
fourth at the moment.
Is it fourth? Oh, is it Piastri overtook him this week?
Yeah.
But I think George has totally maximized what he can with the car at every single race, and he's quietly going about his job. He's quietly leading the team, and fair play. He, for some reason, even though the Ferraris were probably the fourth quickest car at Suzuka, the Mercedes still didn't have the pace to overtake him, which I just find totally bizarre. But that was just Suzuka this weekend.
Yeah.
And we sort of missed it and I want to get back to it. The pit stop incident, lap 22, I believe.
Yeah.
Max and Lando. You know, F1 tried to make it much bigger than it was. How did you see it?
100% the way Lando did when he come out. Yeah, it was Lando trying to be cheeky. You know, go because if you're that far positioned behind the car, you have to back out and get in line. So yeah, it was just Lando trying one on. That's as simple and short of it. It wouldn't have been such a big incident if the Grand Prix actually had some action.
No, I 100% agree.
But I mean, he had to cut that piece of grass. It was a little bit too long from when it got burnt in qualifying. So we just needed it cutting down a little bit.
Do you know what the stupid thing? Do you know what the stupid thing is though? Given how the McLaren is generally very good on his tires in his opening lap, him trying to do that probably cost him the race, because if he had just gone straight behind Max and followed him around sector 1, I think he's close enough to
possibly
overtake him.
could have done, yeah. Possibly
That's the irony of it all.
Yeah, but why they didn't go another lap or two and try and push really hard, I really don't get it. But they were saying it was thermal deg that was the decider in the race rather than wear, so it is what it is. But anyway,
the other thing I want to ask: do you think they should have swapped Piastri and Lando?
No, because I think Piastri would have just ended up where Lando was. By the time they thought about swapping, which was 8 laps to go or something
like that.
I just don't see you lose too much by backing Lando off. You know, you don't gain anything from Oscar. So you then saying if Oscar was 3 seconds behind, then Oscar would be 3 seconds behind and Lando would be 4 seconds behind. It kind of doesn't make it. If anything, you've got extra ground to have to catch up with Max, and I don't think anybody would have. It's Suzuka. No one's going to drive past Max Verstappen in a straight line, are they? Unless he's already miles clear in the championship. So I don't think it was something that McLaren should do team order wise. I think it was interesting that they said, well, this is what Lando's got. So if you want to prove it, go for it. But, you know, probably stay in position. Is that McLaren maybe flagging who they think can be their championship contender this year? You know, not saying that Oscar can't, but that they don't want to risk swapping them this early, even to give Norris the extra few points to keep the championship lead. It was, you know, if they'd swapped, he would be second in the championship. So that's my view on it, and I'm guessing yours is pretty similar.
It is, and I think my only thing is that they could have done the Mercedes Hungary thing, which is let Oscar try. If he can't get to him on the last lap and a half, just swap the position. But I just don't, given how far ahead the front three were, given the resurfacing of the track, given all the situations, the tires lasting so much longer than ever anticipated, why did McLaren not try anything in clean air? Why did they not see how much quicker they could have gone in clean air behind? Because there was no undercut. There was no successful the undercut wasn't a thing in Suzuka really this weekend. Like there was literally nothing. So it just boggles the mind that they saw Max come in, and this is sort of the advantage of being second. You see Max come in, you're just carry on.
Yeah.
Just with one of the drivers carry on, or with both. And you know, they came out and said, "Oh well, we didn't want to harm Piastri if we undercut, and we didn't want to harm, Lando if we overcut." You're going for a world title. This is the exact problems and the exact issue I called out at McLaren last year, which is they are not ruthless enough. Because that whole, oh, they're a baby, they've not challenged for the title for 20 years. All those excuses are gone this year. All
Yeah.
of them. There is no excuse. And I was very critical of Lando last year. And I've said it. I said it in the preview to the season. I said it after race one, and I'll say it again. If Lando Norris does not win the Drivers' World Title this year, there needs to be a big conversation into how good he actually is.
Yeah, I think I actually saw from Lando this weekend a person who knew that Max was quick enough to win that race. And I don't buy all Red Bulls. Oh, we're fourth, fifth, sixth, 20th slowest team. And look at us. We've won a Grand Prix, Super Max. You know, don't get me wrong. Great drive by Max. You can have great, good drives, whatever. I don't think it was this heroic dragging a Minardi up to the top of the timesheets or anything like that. I just think it was a very solid drive. And I think Lando kind of knew that and knew that he didn't, you know, he could push on and try and get up behind him, but he would kill his tyres doing so. So what's better? Trying to get Max and maybe kill his tyres and Piastri passes him, or an X others may pass him, or take the second place, go to the next Grand Prix, because he knew it had been blown at the start. You know, he knew it was blown in qualifying, and then at the start, you're just hoping Max gets a bad start or you get a rocket. And I do think that's the situation there. I think it's more that if Lando was just consolidating the situation, I know he should have tried to go for a win, but there's too many times when he probably could have just took a second previously. You know, you think of Austria. I know he was trying to beat Max at that stage, and it was something Max tried, but I just feel like it was an okay result. And Lando was like, okay, well, it's Suzuka. We can't overtake. Not easily anyway. Let's just ease off. Let's just get it home. And maybe because of a brake issue he had in China, maybe it was maybe a worry of that, being too close to other cars and things like that. Who knows? We're guessing. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. We've got Bahrain this weekend, and then straight after it, we've got Saudi. So 2 circuits, which, I mean, we know McLaren's pretty good around Saudi as well, because it likes medium to high speed corners. So definitely should be pretty good around Saudi. Max has had his issues with Saudi before, so who knows? And anything can happen on that circuit. But looking at the other drivers, I mean, myself and Paul have both said we're not, well, I think you have as well, not huge fans of this next driver, but Isaac Hadjar, a great, solid rookie driver, I think.
Yeah. Especially, you know, we've gone from binning it on the formation lap to he was comfortable, he was quick, he showed his pace, and more of the same. To be honest, more of the same. He qualified really well. I think that PayPal, MasterCard, Red Bull,
yeah,
is the strongest car in the midfield. I think it's the best car in the midfield. It's qualified as the best car in the midfield in the last 3 races. You know, Sonoda was doing what he was doing before he got the death seat at Red Bull, and fair play. You know, in terms of Lawson, probably not the race. Regardless of anything, probably not the race he wanted to.
no,
he wanted to have on his return, and they stuck him on the softs. He finished 17th. It didn't work. Maybe I'm premature, but he needs a very good race very quickly. Otherwise,
he needs something morale boosted. Less about RB dropping him, because we know who's next up.
Yeah,
we know it's Arvid Lindblad.
Blind.
And he's got his F2 season, didn't get any points in the opening race, but obviously the feature didn't happen. So we'll find out a lot more this week. I'm going to say this weekend. I've got to try and remember, but GP2. There we go. I'm going back a long way. F2 normally do go to Bahrain. Yes, they do. And also F3 should be going to Bahrain. Yes. So both go to Bahrain. Only F2 go to Saudi. Yeah, that's correct. Just wanted to make sure I was correct because we don't want to give you false information like Lewis Hamilton will leave McLaren and Mercedes and go to Ferrari early. Things like that. I never said on this show. But yeah, so Hadjar, Albon, and Behrman, each of them good shouts for driver of the day. Each of them beating their teammate. I think the closest one was Albon and Seitz at 34 seconds. Ollie Behrman beating Ocon by 31.
Ocon was nowhere this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, luckily he was somewhere when Jack Doohan tried to get out the car because he needed somebody to lean on very, very quickly. But you know,
what do you make of signs at the Williams project so far? Because I think all of us came into the season going, especially me, I said Albon's going to get found out this year.
Yeah.
And I totally understand it takes time to adjust to a car, but I mean, Sainz has been nowhere comparatively, especially in Japan. He got sent to the shadow realm in terms of relative to Albon.
I generally feel this is honestly one of them moments where the chassis, has got caught some kind of damage or something, or not molded right. And if they change his chassis, his look will change. I honestly think it must be that, because for him to go from absolutely nowhere, absolutely everywhere, sorry, in testing, to not even, until qualifying in Australia, Seitz was looking amazing. Then qualifying in Australia happened, and Albon's been the number one driver since, which is bizarre. Not saying it's completely unexpected. Albon is a very good driver, and it's probably maybe showing us how well he did drive. But there's got to be a fundamental thing with Seitz's car that's not quite the same, which are not kind of coming out and saying, because Carlos seems pretty baffled by it all as well.
I mean, I am. I'm sure obviously Carlos is, but I sure as shit am. I genuinely thought they'd be a lot closer. What do we go? They got Bahrain, and then did they have a 2-week break till?
It's Bahrain and then Saudi, straight off.
Okay, so after Saudi, if there's a chassis change,
it's a bit of a break,
yeah. Because I think, what's the next? Is it Imola, the next European race?
Imola would be the next European race, but
yes. Oh no, it goes Miami. Sorry.
Yeah, we got Miami.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot about the logistical sense that it makes going from Saudi Arabia to Miami. Apologies about that.
But that's the thing: getting a new chassis to Miami would be possible.
I think they're gonna wait for Imola.
Yeah, you'd expect them to wait for Imola, but I think if it turns out that in Bahrain and Saudi, Seitz is miles off, I think they've got to start looking at changing it sooner rather than later. And getting one shipped out to Miami could be possible. Just depends whether the budget is there for them to do so. That would be a huge part of it. But who knows? It's just, yeah.
We've somehow managed to speak as much on this Suzuka Grand Prix. We have given Suzuka Grand Prix more interest than the actual race was.
Yeah, and just to say, Lance Stroll, I bet you had a nice Sunday drive. Is he the only driver to get lapped? Yes, he was. The only driver to be lapped. The only driver. He just looked like he's on the Sunday stroll, to be fair. But and
he still has more points than
Fernando
Alonso.
Yeah. I will say one thing before we go much further. Max Verstappen, very complimentary about Honda. Alonso, very sucking up to Max quite a lot this weekend in comments.
I mean, he has done since 21.
Yeah, I'm just wondering though, is this because some Dutch person has a contract with Aston Martin, and obviously somebody else wants to be his teammate, and needs to make sure he's on the right side. Because I mean, imagine it. Let's just throw these stories out here. So we did this with Paul on his stream yesterday. First up, you've got the story where Lawrence Stroll sits Lance Stroll down and says, "Sorry, you've had a good 10 years, but you know, move aside now. Let's get some proper races in." It's a bit of an awkward conversation to have with your son when you brought a team to get your son into Formula One.
Yeah, it is.
Or keep him in Formula One, sorry. Or do you then have the conversation with Fernando Alonso and say, yes, you've been waiting since 2000 to have your hands on, sorry, his debut was in 2001, but to have your hands on an Adrian Newey designed car, but sorry, we're going to have to put you next to Max, or you're going to be replaced by Max, and you're not going to get your hands on an Adrian Newey car. I mean, they're two very tough discussions for Lawrence to try and decide between.
You don't become a billionaire without making ruthless decisions. And now,
so you mean Alonso's going?
No. I think it's Alonso. I think it's Alonso and Stroll for one more year. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking just in the future. I'm not sure.
In the future. Oh no, Max. If Adrian Newey is there for longer than 2 years, Max Verstappen is in my opinion, Max Verstappen is an Aston Martin driver by 2027.
Yeah, the hints kind of head that way at the moment with the rumours, but we'll see how disgruntled Max gets when a Red Bull gets a bit slower, maybe. We're going to move on in a minute to predictions and whether we did any good. The final little thing I will just mention is Franco Colapinto has had a TPC, which is one of the older cars, test at Monza, doing race runs. Is this the start of the end for Jack Doohan already?
Bye, Jack. Thanks for being here. I mean, the Alpine for the first 3 races has been a total shit show. Let's be honest. They're somehow the only team that have not scored points. How is that possible?
They're just waiting for Brazil.
Yeah.
But it's not even in a position where they can get it. They have to get 6 points before they actually get out of off the bottom of the table.
Yeah, because somehow the Saubers scored a decent amount of points, which it's just bizarre. Like I don't know why Alpine, Renault, whatever they want to go. I don't know why they're in the sport. They've not had any relative success since 2011. Well, was that was Seb's last world title, right? 2011.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, 2013 was Seb's last.
Sorry, I've just seen Declan Rice smash a free kick in.
Yeah, 2013 was Vettel's last title.
All right, so they've not
in the hybrid era, shall we say?
Yeah, they've done nothing in the hybrid era.
Yeah, no, it's one that I do wonder what is best about it, but yeah, let's have a look at what we predicted, because obviously we didn't do a preview show. So I did get everybody to post their predictions across to us beforehand. This was done on Thursday night before practice happened. So Wajid, we'll start as you're leading 2-1-0 at the moment. Let's have a look at yours first. So for qualifying,
it was a horror. I'll do it. Don't worry.
Go on.
So for quali, I had Yuki in 5th.
Yeah. No, you didn't.
Oh, sorry. No, I didn't. That's you. Sorry. I had Max in 5th. Brilliant.
Yeah.
I had Lewis in 4th. Brilliant. I had Charles in Third. Brilliant.
Close-ish.
I had Lando in second. That's a point.
Du-du-du-du-du-du.
And I had Piastri first.
So 1 point, which is it's okay in our world.
I mean,
It's okay in our world.
that's pretty much a Champions League in our world.
And for me in qualifying, I had Yuki 5th, Lewis 4th, Charles 3rd, Piastri and Norris the opposite way around to what you did. So I got no points from that. Paul had qualifying as Yuki in 5th, Lewis in 4th, Charles in 3rd, Piastri and Norris. So no, sorry, that's me. That's mine. Sorry, here we go. Leclerc in 5th, Hamilton 4th, Verstappen 3rd, Piastri 2nd, and Norris 1st. So Paul is still on the big fat donut.
I extend my lead so far.
Yeah, so far it's 3-1-0. But then we get to the race. And now, Wajid?
For the race, I had Lando 5th. I had George 4th. I must have been smoking some mad crack because I had Yuki 3rd, Charles 2nd, and I had Lewis 1st. So no point. I will read yours out.
Yeah.
As you also had Verstappen in 5th.
Yeah.
You had Yuki in 4th. You had George in 3rd. You get 1 for Norris in 2nd. And you had Lewis in 1st. So we remain the status quo at 3-2.
And
Mr.
Paul,
Mr. Red Eye.
Yes, he had 5th Verstappen. Oh, sorry, no, I'm reading mine again. Here we go. He had 5th Tsunoda, 4th Alonso.
Brilliant.
Whatever Paul's having, I'm going to have some of it as well. 3rd Leclerc, 2nd Hamilton, and 1st Norwich. So no Verstappen, no Piastri in the top 5, no Russell, no Antonelli, and he gets again 0.
So our 30 predictions so far, he's 0 for 30. He is at a 100% rate so far.
Yeah, so that means you're on 3, I'm on 2, Paul's on 0. Yeah, Paul, you'll be getting the donuts out. Yeah, not great. Not great for Paul there. I will get predictions before the next Grand Prix. We won't do them live on stream because Paul, one, we've got a few days to decide and the drivers might change who's actually driving by the time we get to Bahrain. And secondly, Paul's not here anyway to feed his out. So if we get time later in the week, we might be able to throw them out to you. But that's it. Amazingly enough for the Japanese Grand Prix, that is it. Paul is still in the predictions on the same score as the rating the Grand Prix got. We're not much higher than the rating the Grand Prix got, to be fair. And that is... Well, that's it. Bahrain, if we don't see you before then, the race will be held at 4 o'clock UK time, qualifying 5 o'clock on the Saturday, and it is a normal free practice qualifying and race format. So no sprint race this weekend. Way! I'm so glad we didn't do one round Japan.
Oh my God, do you imagine?
Imagine watching the first stint of a sprint race and going, yeah, I'll have double that, please. Wajid, thank you for joining us. As always, this is actually, if we're quick enough, go on.
No, sorry, I was just going to say quickly. We'll get the predictions out, but we'll post them in the community tab on the YouTube and the Twitch.
Yeah,
we will get them out.
Yeah, I've got to say this: we may actually make it under an hour. I'm tempted to hang on 25 seconds just to not break that thing. But as we say, yourself, myself, Paul, we need to get better with predictions. And next week we'll be back after review the Bahrain Grand Prix. As some people say, they may not be right, but the first, We're last and always wrong. Good night.